Dante, there's a lot of speculation right now that perhaps President Trump has got some concessions from the Mexican government. President Sheinbaum is going to release water to the U.S. What is the latest you've heard?
So the latest I've heard is that the two countries are discussing that possibility right now. And let me just say, on behalf of South Texas, it could not come at a more critical time because we absolutely need assurities of water in order to make it another year. Our farmers are already 2 years without water. We're seeing fields go fallow. We're seeing them continue to have to shed employees. They're losing long-term customers and contracts. And so we need to have that guarantee of water going into the next season. Otherwise, this nightmare scenario will continue.
And you were telling me earlier that there's the scenario that could play out is if they release the water, it's not all of the beneficiaries along the Rio Grande that are going to benefit. The water will not come from Chihuahua like it normally does. It would be brought in from the San Juan River. Tell us about that.
Right. So that's part of the conversations that are going on is, right, where does the water come from? And so I'll be very honest and very transparent. I am not part of those conversations, right? It obviously happening at a high level, but we've got to look at the reality of the situation, which is where is there currently water in Mexico? And so that plays a very different role. What we were talking about, Steve, is ideally the absolute best case scenario is the water comes from the Rio Conchos Basin near Chihuahua and Western Coahuila, right? Because that water enters the Rio Grande at the northernmost point and then benefits all of the Texas Mexican communities on both sides of the river, all the way down our entire Texas-Mexico border. The scenario that is perhaps likely, again, because I'm not part of those negotiations, but the scenario that's perhaps likely is that water enters at the Rio San Juan because that's where Mexico has water right now. Now, how does that play in through the entirety of these negotiations or contracts? No idea. Does it even come to fruition? Again, I think it's too early to tell, but I can say this, and this is the exciting news, is the fact that the U.S. and Mexico are actually talking about a solution. And that's what people need to understand is that's the big difference here, is that in years past, there hasn't been a clear path forward. But with President Trump's announcement and President Sheinbaum now saying, hey, yes, I'm on the same page, those are good things. That's moving us towards solutions, and that's what we need. And so that's what I want people to recognize is that the two countries are at the table looking for solutions instead of finger pointing now.
And so if it does come from the San Juan River, the beneficiaries would be the Rio Grande Valley farmers, but also the farmers in Tamaulipas as well.
That's right, because the water is in Tamaulipas. And so, we in Southern Texas and our friends in Tamaulipas, both are the last users of the water out of the Rio Grande River. So if something doesn't happen, we're the ones who are left without. And so this is really, in my opinion, a sharing of the two most impacted partners of the water resource that we both very desperately need.
I have one more question, and it relates not so much to water, but this forum today here at Laredo College. The discussion's been all about tariffs. And in the Q&A, you responded to a question where someone was saying, there was someone in the audience who's in the import-export business, it sounded like, who says, why is the public just not getting involved? Why aren't people jumping up and down and shouting about the impact of tariffs? And you said, just watch this space.
Right. You need to. So oftentimes the American public doesn't react loudly until they themselves are actually impacted. And so, I made the scenario about fruits and vegetables and that impact, right? 60% of our fruits and 35% of our vegetables are imported. Could the U.S. grow those things? Sure, but it's going to take years. And so immediately what's going to happen today, tomorrow, the U.S. consumer won't feel the fruit and vegetable prices at the grocery store go up because the supply chain takes time to react. Now, in the next month to 2 months, think about things like bananas. We grow 0 bananas commercially here in the U.S. So our bananas are coming from Latin America. Those countries now have a 10% tariff on them. At some point in the next month to 2 months, you're going to see banana prices go up at those grocery stores because there is going to have to be a response to the existing market conditions. This isn't politics, this is economics. And so I believe at that point, you start seeing price tags at the grocery store go up. We talked a lot about cars here at today's session. So they speculated car prices go up. I think at that point, just like we saw in 2024, when inflation starts hitting Americans' pocketbooks, that's when you really start to hear the tenor of their concern rise. And that was my point today is Americans aren't feeling it yet. And so that's why most people have been very quiet. But I suspect as the tariffs prolong and go on and it starts to impact the cost of everyday life, that's when Americans start to say, hey, wait a minute, I have concerns here.
You even said you'd put money on it.
I will put money on the table that America will speak up if it hits their pocketbooks, because we saw that in 2024. Americans spoke up. We saw that with eggs this year. Americans spoke up. When it hits their bank accounts, that's when we express our concerns.
That's all the questions I had, Dante. So anything else you'd like to say?
You know, at this time, I will say what I always say is that America, continue to eat your fruits and vegetables, right? Because you are benefiting Texas, you're benefiting our trade partners, but most importantly, you're benefiting yourself.